guys, here's another do-it-yourself video from Crazy Bob's Garage, and today we're going to do something that a lot of you requested actually, and even though I'm doing it a little early, I'm doing it at about 30,000 miles, but you requested it, so what the heck, I'm going to go ahead and do it a little early, and that is oil change on a direct clutch transmission. So some of the things I'm going to talk about today hold true for BMW, but really for all double clutch transmissions, some of the rules to doing this properly. So pay attention and hopefully you'll learn some tricks. Make sure you get a new fill plug. These are made out of aluminum and have a seal installed. Okay, so once you've gathered your supplies and you have all that, make sure to get a container that you're going to fill the old transmission oil into. It did not have markings as to how much goes in, so I basically filled it up with about 10 liters, liter by liter, and made marks on the container. This is trick number one, because this is going to be very important. When you pull the old fluid out, look at what you've got. Chances are that's about what needs to go back in. And so that's a good starting point for when you're filling it later. So we're going to take a closer look at that as we drain it, and we'll see how much we actually get out. So one thing you really have to think about is how am I going to get the fluid back into the transmission. So in my case, I purchased a nifty little container. I'm going to pour my fluid back into here, and then by a pressurized air it's going to put it up into the top, back into the transmission. So of course the other two things you need to make sure you have is a new side filter and a new bottom filter. So these two are very important. Don't just change the fluid. If you're going to drop the pan, you go ahead and change these while you're at it. Now the other thing that is notorious in the DCT transmissions is the rubber gasket. Now they make improved gaskets made out of Viton, and it's supposed to withstand temperatures, chemicals, and be a lot more resistant to leaking. So in my case, I purchased a Viton gasket, got it off of eBay for 85 bucks. Or you can go through SSP, and they also have them. And here comes the big surprise for the day. I also decided, as the plastic pan warps and gets a little bit distorted over time, and at about 30,000-40,000 miles you'll start expecting small seepage and leaks, I went ahead and purchased a Mojo Power aluminum pan. And here's what this baby looks like. Isn't it beautiful? It has pretty much the same dimensions as the stock pan, but it has these aluminum cooling fins, and it's made out of CNC aluminum. Really good investment. I will throw their, I'll give them a little plug and throw their address in the bottom of my description. Okay, first things first. This pan has to be removed. There's 10 little bolts. Once you remove them, I've already did the pre-work. Once you've removed these, this slides off, and you have your transmission pan in straight view. This shield will need to come off. It is held by two 10mm nuts. Once you have this shield off, you will see your fill plug on the rear right side. And we're going to show you that a little closer here in a second. Make sure to loosen this plug before you drain any fluid, because if for whatever reason you can't get that loose, then you're going to be dead in the water, because there's no way to get the fluid back in if you can't put it in the side like that. The side filter is held in by a big C-clip, and there's a new lid that comes with the side filter. Make sure you get the new C-clip and side filter when you go to change that. For the side filter, you will need a good set of snap ring pliers. So there's the side filter. Now I do have to give you a disclaimer. It takes a little to get it out, so I wedged a screwdriver on the back side and kind of used the outside case to pop it out. It's not sitting in there tight, but just enough to where it's kind of tricky to get out. Here's the new filter. Looks a lot different, right? And so it's a good idea to lube up the little rubber right there just a little bit. Get a little transmission fluid on there. And then we're going to go ahead and slide it in and make sure we pop it into place. And just, you heard that audible pop hopefully. And that's it. Next thing is putting the cover on and putting the snap ring back on, which was probably the toughest part about this because I'm on the wrong type of lift. If you have access to a 2-post lift, we'll make it a little easier for you. Yikes. So to remove the filter, there are 2 T30 Torx holding it in, so I'm going to go ahead and get the first one out here. Okay, so here you can see the comparison between the Mojo Performance pan and the original plastic pan. The design on the Mojo Performance pan, much better. I'm a little more confident with it. The only thing that you have to transfer is the old magnet. Now take a look at how gooky that old magnet is. So that's the stuff that's rubbing off in your transmission. And this is at, remember, 30,000 miles. So while I was doing this, because of all the requests I got, I think it's probably a good idea to do it anywhere between 30 and 50,000 miles, because as you can see, there's enough there to warrant a fluid change. So once the 2 filter bolts are off, you also have to remove this pump bolt. There's one 6mm Allen or Torx, and once you remove that, the pan will come down. So if you take a look, the fluid as it's pouring out of the filter doesn't actually look terribly bad, but if you look at the fluid in the bucket, is pretty dark overall. So if you take a look while I'm in here, and I've got the filter off, that right there is your forks. There's a little magnetic on the end, and I cleaned these off already. They had quite a bit of metallic particles. There's another one above that. Those are about the only 2 you can maybe get to. And carefully clean them off just a little bit with a long Q-tip. Okay, so we got the new filter in. We're going to go ahead and put our 2 T30 Torx back in. And remember, when you're putting these in, use a small ratchet. That way you won't overpower anything. And you really just tighten it down with a tiny little bit of snug. Next, we're going to go ahead and put the pump back in. You'll see it snaps in place. Go ahead and take your number 6 hex. We're going to tighten that back up. So now we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to hand tighten all these. And then when I'm done, I'm going to follow a sequence back and forth, kind of like when you're torquing a cylinder head. So, and that gives you a nice even seal across, and you kind of want to seal evenly. It gives no opportunity for a leak. So I'm just going to start snugging up one side, then the other, then the other, and then I'm going to cross over. So after pulling the pressure filter out, dropping the sump filter, we actually wound up at 6 liters. So if you were to use any of these kits that you get that have 5 liters, you'd be short by a liter. So make sure you have at least 6 liters on hand. I have 9 on hand, so I went overboard, but nonetheless, I'd probably buy at least 7. What I'm going to use for this is a Multi DCTF by Motul. Now, I'm over here in Germany right now, so this is probably one of the best. I went ahead and checked the specs on the original Pentasyn FFL4, which is the original BMW designation, and I found that the viscosity index on this is 174. On the Pentasyn is 168, so the higher the better, and in this case, this is actually better. So the viscosity at 40 degrees and the viscosity at 15 degrees and the viscosity at 20 degrees, those numbers were all fairly identical with the Pentasyn. So for me it was a no-brainer. Hey, it's got a slightly better viscosity index and all the other numbers are pretty accurate, and this goes for about I think I paid 15 euros. For you guys in the States, that would be around 18 bucks. 18 bucks a quart versus what, 30, 40 bucks for the Pentasyn stuff. So I'm gonna give it a shot. I'll let you guys know if it doesn't work. Just assume it's working great if you don't see no videos on it. Okay, so we've gotten 5 liters in, and it started dribbling at the fill plug. So when that happens, you pretty much have to stop at that point. Now, what I have to do is I have to go ahead and start the car. I'm going to leave the car up on the lift. I have a ladder over here. I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to start the car, and then the temperature while I'm filling the rest cannot go over 40 degrees Celsius. So now you're wondering why I'm suddenly not in my garage and I'm here sitting in my living room. Well, there's a reason for that. So after I made the video, this is in retrospect, I cut it into the middle of the video, and there's a reason why. The German forums actually were pretty good. They said, hey, it's a pretty decent video, but you might want to use a tool called ISTA, or as most of you know it, ISTA. And I replied, why would I worry about using ISTA? They said, well, you might note that you'll get a couple 100 milliliters more fluid into your transmission. While I don't think this would be detrimental, 300, 400 milliliters more or less, but I'm a 100% kind of guy, so of course I was curious. So I said, you know what, let me just take the car, put it back on the lift, and use this program called ISTA. And of course you're going to need an E-net cable, and I will show you the ISTA program in a second. And the big result was I actually was able to put 400 milliliters extra into the transmission. So here's a look at what the ISTA program does while you're hooked up and going through the service functions. So once you're in the ISTA Plus, you'll want to go ahead and start the vehicle test. You have to go ahead and do a complete vehicle scan before you can do the rest. Then at the top of the screen, you're going to come to Service Plan. Vehicle Management. You're going to come to Vehicle Management, and then you're going to go to Service Functions. You're going to then see Powertrain, DKG Transmission Control, Adjustment, Oil Balancing, and then you're going to go ahead and start search. Now, all the while, the ignition is on. This oil adjustment that you're seeing right here will not be italicized. It will be in normal letters, and that's what you're going to pick. It's then going to walk you through each and every step, and I'm going to show you what it does. I'm going to go ahead and get the instructions for it, and we'll go ahead and put those on the screen for you real quick. So when you look at the service function procedures right here, this is what the system does, and it does all this pretty much automatically. So long story short, if you want to be 100% accurate, I'm sure using any other tool to stay between 30 and 40 degrees and run through the gears and bring the RPMs to 2,000 for a moment, and then start filling it. We'll get you pretty close, and I'm sure 200-300 milliliters plus or minus aren't going to kill anything, but I'm a 100% kind of guy, and I like being 100% on. So we wound up at 6.9 liters, not 6.5, which is what I thought we were at earlier. And the very top one is my transmission temperature, so that cannot go over 40 Celsius. So, we got the pan on, we got everything clean. Last thing to do is put the 2 aluminum shields on both sides and the plastic belly pan underneath, and we're done. And basically that goes back on in reverse. I'm not going to bore you with that. So in the end, it was 6.5 liters that this thing took. Glad I got 9 just to be sure. So it was 6.5. So you will need 7 liters. So thanks for watching the video. Hopefully all you guys that are wanting to do a DCT oil change, the fear has been taken out of it a little bit. As long as you watch the temperatures, follow the instructions that I gave you, you're going to be perfectly fine.